Following video explains how we can use PLPCO, a state agency, to help protect our access to public lands in Utah. Hi, everybody. My name's Lauren Campbell. I'm with Utah Public Lands Alliance, and I've got the pleasure of talking with two people from PLPCO. PLPCO stands for the Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office. Did I get that right?
You did.
Um, I'd like to introduce you guys to Jake Garfield and Tess Davis. Jake, why don't you tell us about your background and what you do for PLIPCO? And then Tess is actually the Assistant Attorney General that works with PLIPCO in their offices. So, Jake, you want to start and just kind of tell us who PLIPCO is, what your background is, and how you can help with land access?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. We're really pleased to be here. My name is Jake Garfield. I am the deputy director for our agency. We are a state agency. We're in the state government, and PLPCO has a really unique role. It's a little bit of an awkward name. You have to like imagine some vowels in there to get to PLPCO, the PLPCO. But essentially, what our role within the state government is to be the state government's lead point of contact with the federal land management agencies. That means the BLM, the U.S. Forest Service, the National Park Service. These are agencies that own and manage most of the land in Utah, about 2/3 of the land in Utah. And we are our job is to build relationships with these federal agencies and to advocate for the state government and for county governments to have more of a role in the decision-making process for these on these federal lands. They're federal lands, so we don't have a vote, unfortunately. We do try to have more of a role, and we generally do that by building partnerships with federal agencies. But we also there's a legal element there as well. There's times where we intervene in lawsuits when the federal agencies are being sued, and we want to support our federal partners. And there's also situations where we support the Utah Attorney General's office in litigating against the federal government when decisions have been made that are that the state government does not support. So that is the big picture, what our role is with the state government.
All right, very good. And the part we're talking about today, land access, is only one small part of what PLIPCO does. You have a lot of other roles in the state as well, right? You want to just briefly recount what those are, Jake?
Yeah, so we promote the really the proper use and the multiple use of federal land. So we advocate for energy development on federal lands, both renewable and non-renewable energy. We advocate for for the wise management of our watersheds, whether that means promoting healthy forests or promoting healthy rangelands for wildlife and for livestock. And these are objectives that the federal agencies often share as well. But we work closely with our federal partners to try to improve management of federal lands all across Utah in a way that supports recreation in Utah, that supports Utah's economy, that allows rural Utah and rural communities that are surrounded by federal lands to thrive, even though they don't have very much private land in their communities.
Very good. And Tess, you're the Assistant Attorney General, one of a team of Attorney Generals that work in PLIPCO's offices. And you want to tell us a little bit about your role?
Sure. So I joined the office about 5.5 years ago. And our role at PLPCO is kind of to support the policy objectives of PLPCO, and working with our federal partners on different agency rulemakings and things like that. And then when these issues go to the courts or go to litigation, as they so often do, then the assistant attorneys general kind of take over from there and work on the litigation piece of some of these issues, including access.
Okay, very good. And you mentioned specifically federal lands, but you work with all types of lands. Am I correct on that?
I mean,
Um,
we do work with our state partners. We were part of the Department of Natural Resources, so there are other, agencies, state parks and other public land organizations that we work with. But as far as the work that we oversee, it's largely federal.
Okay. All right. Very good. It's nice to have an attorney in your office or a team of attorneys.
Mhm.
Um, Jake, in particular, I know one of the tools that you've got are the RS 2477 roads, and a lot of people have heard the term, but I'm not sure that most people really understand what that is. Can you give us something less than a 100-page explanation of what an RS 2477 roads are and what kind of impact they have on land access?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I'll try to keep this brief, but just after the Civil War, Congress passed a law, very short and simple law, saying that if a road was constructed across public land, that road would become a public road, and there would be the public would then have a right to continue to use that road in the future. That that law stayed on the books for over a century, as many roads were constructed across BLM land all over or I should say just public land, federal land all over the United States. That law was repealed in 1976 with the passage of FLPMA, the Federal Land Policy and Management Act. But roads that existed at the time were grandfathered in. Including thousands and thousands of roads across Utah. And unfortunately, when the law was repealed in 1976, there was no inventory of what roads were out there in 1976. And the standard for what would make a road public isn't just any road, but it would be a road that was in use for at least 10 years of use by the public. And so one of the principal roles of our agency and of the assistant attorney generals like Tess, who represent our agency, is looking at all these roads on BLM land and seeing which roads had 10 years of continuous public use prior to 1976, which would then make give the public a right to continue using these roads. And that is perhaps the biggest piece of the workload within our state agency right now.
Okay, very good. And PIPCO has actually cataloged these roads, right? And there's a tool that's available to the public that they can go to and use, right, to see if a road is on the register.
There is, yeah. We have a tool called Access Map 360. Our GIS team has actually gone out and driven thousands of these roads with 360-degree cameras. So they've actually filmed the roads so the public can get onto this website and actually look at film of the road to see, if that's someplace that, their vehicle or their equipment could access. It gives the public a way to see what the roads look like on the ground and to help people find areas that they're looking for.
And I'm just gonna put on the screen here your website for a second so people can see this. Can you guys see that? See your website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you go down here, been practicing with this, you go to see the access map, and you go down here, and I'm doing this for a reason because I think it's important for people to see how many roads are actually cataloged on this system. So that's our beautiful state, and all the lines on that entire map represent cataloged RS 2477 roads, correct?
Exactly.
So it's a lot of roads. How many miles of roads do you guys have in your catalog?
Miles, I don't know, but we have over 13,000 roads statewide.
Wow, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what is the process? Do you handle both access across private land, accessing public land? Tell me what your criteria is for that.
Jake, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we're focused on roads that cross BLM land, that cross federal land, but of course many roads originate on private land and then go on to federal land. We have filed 22 separate lawsuits against the federal government, seeking to quiet the title to these roads. It's not trying to change the status quo, but it's trying to ensure that the public has a has a permanent right to continue using these roads. Those lawsuits are not filed against private landowners; they're just filed against the federal government. And so that's our focus. That's what we're that's what we spend our time doing in situations where a road may cross private land, and before it goes on the BLM land, and there's access issues on the private land, it's generally county governments who take the lead in securing access on the private parcels, and that's often, often just a friendly conversation with the landowner to explain, that the importance of public access. Sometimes it's, it may resort to some kind of legal action. We can be there to support counties if they request it, but generally the division of labor is kind of counties working on the private land part of roads, and our agency focuses on the federal land.
Okay, very good.
And from a legal standpoint, if it is an RS 2477 road, it means that the road predated the private land ownership. So if the private land was there before the road, then it wouldn't be an RS 2477 road.
Got it. I didn't know that.
If the private land ownership happened later on and a section of that road happens to cross their property, that's when it would get involved with the RS 2477 piece.
Okay, that's interesting. I did not understand that. That's good. So how does someone get help if they're having issues and they want to report something to you to try and get you guys involved? What is the best way for them to do that?
We've got all of our contact information available on our website, and also people are free to reach out to us on social media. We've been building a social media presence, and we respond to those messages as well.
Okay. So maybe the first thing to do would be just make a phone call. Is that probably the best? Okay, very good. And I'll put the phone number on the screen here, and we'll make that available to anybody in Utah.
Our most recent success, I think, was the Burr Trail. We had a section of the Burr Trail that the county wanted to chip seal. And they spoke with the BLM, and the BLM issued what they call a FONSI, which is a finding of no significant impact. And once they issued that, the county was able to proceed with the road work and chip seal this, 7 or 8 mile section of the Burr Trail. That was challenged in court and ultimately was appealed to the 10th Circuit, and we won that appeal. So the Burr Trail remains open for the public to use and access.
All right. I think lots of people have seen pictures of that. It's a pretty remarkable view. I've never been there, but it's pretty remarkable. So, in closing comments, Jake, do you have anything you'd like to add to kind of anything that we haven't touched on?
Well, just an interesting side note is a lot of people ask us about forest roads. A lot of people say, well, we don't have access problems in the desert or on BLM land, but we have lots of access problems in the forest, but we are not pursuing RS 2477 claims in national forests, and that's because the law RS 2477, it was no longer applied when national forests were created in Utah. That means that at the turn of the start of the 20th century, while on the BLM lands, this law was not repealed until 1976. And so proving that a road existed on the forest lands is much more difficult with national forests. With BLM lands. What we have to do is just we go to talk to people in person who grew up using these roads before 1976. But for the forest, there aren't people like that alive anymore. And so we certainly support public access on forest lands as well. But the way we do that is working constructively with our partners at the Forest Service to advocate for public access. The legal side just isn't there right now because these forests were created well over 100 years ago.
We're exploring mechanisms for pursuing those claims, but as of now, that's not something that we're able to do.
Well, the mapping you've already done was a monumental task. Now, how long has PLPCO been around? Jake?
As PLPCO,
Well, as
2010, is that right, Jake?
Yeah, it's been I guess it'd be about 12 years now in its current kind of role within the state government. It's definitely kind of evolved a little bit over time.
all
But
right.
the RS 2477 project started in about 2000. So
And when the work started to catalog the roads, that was just after the memorandum of understanding, indicating that the roads had to be documented. And that's
exactly.
when you started that project.
Yep.
Very good. Cool. Very good. So anybody that has any issues with access to public lands, please contact PLPCO. We'll put their phone number right here below, and they actually answer their phones. So you won't get a recording most likely, and somebody will be glad to help you. Thank you very much, Jake and Tess, for your time today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And we have a lot of beautiful public lands in Utah, and the only way they do any of us any good is if we can access them. So this is a very vital role for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Together, we will win. But we can't do it without you. Learn how you can help at utahpla.com/help.